Stefon Diggs, Calvin Ridley, and Jakobi Meyers have clear-cut wide receiver one opportunities. And although they might not have the potential to be a top-tier fantasy wide receiver, they can still be great values in your fantasy drafts. We dig into the rest of our wide receiver ranks for 2025 on today's episode of Locked On Fantasy Football.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen every day. I'm one of your co-hosts, Michelle Magdziuk, and when I'm not doing this, I'm a researcher and fantasy analyst with NFL Network.
And I'm your other co-host, Vinnie Iyer, and when I'm not doing this, I'm writing about NFL fantasy and betting for sportingnews.com.
We are continuing our wide receiver fantasy rankings for the 2025 season on today's show. We've already gone through our top 30 rankings. We'll go, maybe until about wide receiver 45 or so. So we'll got another 15 guys to talk through here with you. And let's just dig right into this and talking about digging. Stefon Diggs, I have right at the top here at wide receiver 30. I actually just moved him up over the night. I'm getting higher on him as we hear more about his health and his availability. But you're still sticking with him a little bit lower at wide receiver 38. I'll say we have Zay Flowers and Stefon Diggs basically swapped. So I'm much lower on Zay Flowers than you. I have Flowers at 39. You have him at 30. And then I have Stefon Diggs at 30 and you have Diggs at 38. So why do you like Zay Flowers over Stefon Diggs, Vinny?
Well, there's some establishment there that I know with Zay Flowers and his production with Lamar Jackson. We know it's inconsistent and can be frustrating and all that, but there's some baseline there where we're seeing Stefon Diggs for the first time with Drake May, and he got into this offense a little later. So we want to see everything kind of come together. He also has a torn ACL recovery and seeing how he plays with that, and he will be turning 32 in November, so we can't discount all that. Zay Flowers is a younger receiver in his offense with more familiarity with his quarterback. So that's why I go there. Again, two more guys that I'm not necessarily targeting. I'm also a little bit higher than most people are on Diggs. So let's keep that in mind. But Michelle's going up there all the way to say, yeah, take him for sure as a wide receiver 3. I kind of like him, right outside that. If you're in a deeper league, he's definitely a wide receiver 3 or flex play for me at the 38. So I like the idea of Diggs being the number 1, but this team doesn't have actually a lot of vacated targets, as many as you would like to think. They just didn't have a lot of guys catching passes last year. So, again, I do like Diggs, but we'll see how much he can actually command the ball still at his age. I just think Flowers, again, is a little bit more established with his floor, but Diggs might just end up being the higher ceiling pick here if all things work out. So he just needs the age, the injury, the chemistry, the new offense, all that to line for him where there's a little bit less for Flowers to hit his floor at wide receiver 30.
Yeah, with Diggs, I was just impressed with him last year with the Texans. We were kind of out thinking that he's aged out with his last year in Buffalo. Now, he still was the wide receiver 9 overall in 2023 with the Bills, but he was wide receiver 19 in average scoring last year before he tore his ACL in week 8. But he definitely demanded targets there, and I think it was more crowded in that Texans receiver room, even though Nico Collins had missed some of that time with injury. But, I mean, he was demanding 9, 8, 9, 12 targets in these games, still scoring touchdowns, still putting up decent production. So I think, I'm not worried about Demario Douglas or Kayshon Boutte or Hunter Henry stealing targets away from Diggs. If he's healthy, I fully expect Drake May to lean on him, and I think he can be a really good value in drafts. With Zay Flowers, it was just too inconsistent. I mean, fewer than 9 fantasy points in 10 games played last year, fewer than 6 fantasy points in 6 games played. I have zero desire to select Zay Flowers, and Rashad Bateman puts up similar numbers to him. Mark Andrews is going to steal touchdowns. Isaiah Likely when he's back healthy. Those are all my worries about Zay Flowers. Now, we both have Calvin Ridley as our wide receiver 31. He was the wide receiver 39 in average scoring last year. But I do think Cam Ward being there should definitely be a step up to Will Levis. Ridley's already talking about it's really nice to get accurate targets. So it kind of throwing some shade there at Will Levis. But I think with Cam Ward coming here and really there not being too much competition for targets, Calvin Ridley should have a better year than last year. Maybe not an excellent year, but that's why I moved him up from his scoring from last year.
Yeah, this could be really the poor man or poor person's version of Jaden Daniels and Terry McLaurin for last year. I'm serious about it because Cam Ward is a guy that well-traveled in college, known for dual threat, known for throwing downfield. Calvin Ridley needs a quarterback. He hasn't had a real quarterback since the end of Matt Ryan, right? In terms of someone that can consistently get him the ball. And we know that Calvin Ridley can be a touchdown threat. I mean, that was one of his calling cards early in his career when he was working off Julio Jones in Atlanta. So this could be that under the radar pitch and catch combination that we're looking at. I mean, if I was going for deep sleeper kind of stack in deep leagues, I would look for Ward and what he can do with Ridley. I just think he's going to get the ball to him quite a bit. There's a lot of question marks. They finally gave up on Treylon Burks. So there's kind of a let's move forward and turn the page of this passing game, right? And it really drops off. There's no other receiver that you would totally trust in this offense. That thorn in the side of these guys, Nick Westbrook-Akine, is gone. So Ridley is in a really good position to act like a number one. It just when he's a number one on a shaky team with a rookie quarterback, you just have to make him as a wide receiver 3 type. But I think he does have some upside based on just Ward. Again, Ward not being talked about a lot, but I think Ward and Ridley has to be an important combination for the Titans to have offensive success this season.
Now, Jaylen Waddle finally makes our rankings. He makes it as your wide receiver 32. He's my wide receiver 34. Are we being too harsh on Jaylen Waddle after last year? I really after the last 2 years. He was a wide receiver 53 and average last year, wide receiver 34 in 2023, wide receiver 23 in 2022. Or no, sorry, wide receiver 23 on average in 2023, wide receiver 7 overall in 2022. So that's when we saw his big breakout year in that second year in the NFL. But the last 2 years have just been very, very disappointing for him. Only 6 total touchdowns over those 2 years, and then just a disastrous, all around year for him last year. So are we being too harsh on Waddle when especially since I am giving credit to Tyreek Hill saying, oh, the offense just stunk last year, it'll be better this year?
Well, Tyreek Hill and Waddle, there's a separator that exists there, right? I mean, Waddle, remember, he's had various different roles. I'm not even sure what role he's great at. Remember the first season kind of broke out? He was kind of an extended handoff guy. He was averaging fewer than 10 yards of reception. Then he had the big year. Then he went from 9.8 yards per reception in 2021 to 18.1 to lead the league. So I'm very confused what type of receiver Jaylen Waddle is. He a slot guy? Is he an outside guy? Where are we going? Are the last 2 years more of an indication where he was 14.1 and 12.8? So they're been all over the board with his usage, even in this particular offense with Mike McDaniel. So I think you just have to fade Waddle. I mean, there's the vibes of the Dolphins offense. Like he's not going to catch as much of that short area stuff with Devon A-Chain involved. And so that's a concern. And then talk about Westbrook-Akine. He's hanging around in Miami to siphon off some targets. So I'm not totally buying this again. I wanted to fade the Dolphins passing game quite a bit, and bringing down Waddle would make sense. So I think it's going to be somewhere in between this 23 and 2024. I think leaning toward more what we saw in 24. Like it's gone in the wrong direction for him for sure.
Yeah, unfortunately. Now, we had news yesterday that Keenan Allen is signing back with the Chargers. And I do think he should be ranked somewhere around this area, if not higher. So let's discuss him and discuss the rest of our rankings right after we hear from a couple of our sponsors. Ever check your bank account and wonder where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized how much I was spending on food delivery. It was outrageous. Now I budget smarter and save more. Plus, managing money with my partner has never been smoother. We're able to track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. Fantasy football is back. Fire up the group chat, get your draft board ready, and buckle up for a season filled with breakouts, busts, and all the overreactions we live for. It's all going down on Yahoo Fantasy. This year, like always, Vinnie and I are playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran making your millionth league. Our leagues have been running through Yahoo for a while now because the setup is so easy to create a league and create your drafts and all that good stuff. They have a great mobile app that's super friendly, and their message board feature just allows you to have fun conversations with your league mates all season long. To celebrate 28 years of fantasy greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days, and it all started on August 4th, so go check those out. Stay tuned and get started by creating or joining a Yahoo Fantasy Football League at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. That's yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. And let's make this fantasy season the best one yet. All right, so Keenan Allen is back in LA. And last year in Chicago, it wasn't fantastic. Wide receiver 39 in average scoring. And he's turned 33 years old this offseason. But, we are 1 year removed. His last year with the Chargers, he was the wide receiver 3 in average scoring, averaging 17.3 points per game. That was just in 2023. And I don't know how much has really changed in those 2 years. Yeah, they added Ladd McConkey. I am worried about Ladd McConkey now because, Keenan Allen led the league in receptions per game in 2023. He had over 1,200 receiving yards while playing only 13 games. His yards per game at 95.6 ranked 4th in the NFL in 2023. And he scored 7 touchdowns in those 13 games as well. Are we saying that Keenan Allen's just shot from just 2 years ago? I think Justin Herbert's going to go back to leaning on him a lot.
Yeah, and let's hope that they'll expand Ladd McConkey's role and they'll have some confidence in that because we don't want the slot crossover where Allen is getting into the key snaps of what McConkey was doing. The funny thing is Allen's kind of work paved the way for McConkey to be a key target, and now he's got to share the same pace with McConkey again. So I think this probably makes people feel bad if you're into Trey Harris as a sleeper. I think that's more where I would be concerned. And look, this team needs weapons. We complained about how much this team didn't have weapons, and that played into Justin Herbert's favor or disfavor, I'd say. And then you also have now Ladd McConkey. I think he needs somebody else to help him a little bit in this passing game. So this is a good bump up for Justin Herbert, having a familiar guy that he can target all over the field. That's great news for him. I think it's also kind of good for McConkey, where he might have been the marked man, right, to shut down. Now you got to worry about both of these guys a little bit. But I think all these young receivers that they were trying to break in there, I think that you got to table their values because I think a lot of it is going to go through Allen McConkey, some through the tight ends, some through the running backs, not as much. And it's also going to be a run-heavier offense. So, again, you do have to maybe consider bumping McConkey down a little bit of notch. Michelle has Keenan Allen pretty high here at 36, so right as the last wide receiver 3 in 12-point team leagues. I have him a little bit lower, 42-44 in my Ricky Pearsall range there with Juwan Jennings and Jaden Reed. So I'm a little bit lower, but the bottom line is those rankings say, look, Keenan Allen was on the shelf, and now this team, Mr. Year, was a free agent, but he can still come back and do some damage here pretty quickly. So, again, this is a very, I think, good pickup overall, reality pickup for the Chargers. It is a bummer a little bit for McConkey and other receivers, but I think in the end it can help.
Now, a guy I want to talk about is Odunze because I feel like we were really high on him as a podcast earlier in this offseason, and he's just getting into our ranks now here. You have him at wide receiver 33. I'm at wide receiver 35. And, it's still higher than his average draft position at wide receiver 37. But are we just scared now? Because we really liked him. I thought he was going to be ranked inside my 20s. And I am having trouble getting him there because there's not it's just a lot of just predictions and hope, right? He was a wide receiver 62 in average scoring last year, 53 catch rate. It wasn't working for him. He saw over 100 targets, but just 3 touchdowns, 734 yards. With Keenan Allen gone, we feel good that he can step into this wide receiver 2 role. But they did draft Luther Burden the third. They drafted Colston Loveland. They still have Cole Kmet. They still have DJ Moore, who we expect to be the top target in the team. I do expect Ben Johnson to utilize Rome Odunze much smarter than how the Bears utilized him last year. And he should see an increase in targets and hopefully touchdown potential. It's hard for me to rank him any higher than this one. It's just a lot comes down to hope.
Yeah, and you're right about that. And like we want the talent to manifest so quickly, it may take a little while longer. But that's why I like DJ Moore quite a bit, because I think he is going to act as like the Amon St. Brown in this offense for Ben Johnson, the guy they move around. And then my hope is that Rome Odunze can emerge as the Jameson Williams, the guy can stretch the field on the outside, and Luther Burden will eventually play a slot. But again, Ben Johnson plays a lot of 12 personnel, so you'll probably see a lot with Colston Loveland and Cole Kmet on the field together. So that's actually good news for Odunze, because he'll be the only receiver out there with more. So I think we want to develop it. It could be like a Jameson Williams slow play into a fantasy consistent factor here. And again, but I'm still going to stick with it. I know there's some negative reports about the Bears and how things are going with Caleb Williams, but I still have confidence in that system with Ben Johnson. So that's where I'm going at here, where I do like Odunze. I think it's fair to put him as a wide receiver 3, but not just bang the table for him.
Yeah, it's really what it comes down to. It's just you got to be smart. I mean, it's a risky pick. It can definitely lead to great results in a league winning type of guy. But at the same time, it still is risky. Now, Michael Pittman Jr., we are different on him too. And I struggled to figure out his ranking. I really did. And if it came down to it, I probably would select Odunze over Pittman just for the upside. But I have Pittman at wide receiver 33 at the moment. You have him all the way down at wide receiver 51. And I mean, again, his ADP says wide receiver 50. So you're not actually low on him. I am somewhat high on him. I didn't think that was going to happen, but I know last year was miserable. He was wide receiver 50 in average scoring at just 8.2 points per game, but he dealt with a bad back injury most of the year and just played through that. He's trying to toughen it out for his team. In 2023, he was the wide receiver 18 in average scoring at 12.2 points per game. In 2022, he was a wide receiver 29. In 2021, he was a wide receiver 25. So I took those 3 years, and I'm saying he's probably closer to those 3 years, maybe a little bit worse because of the quarterback situation. But over the year last year where he was just, dealing with the back injury all year long, like I'm saying, it should be a little bit better. So I'm a wide receiver 33, not pumped to draft him because of the quarterback situation, but he should be Anthony Richardson's or Daniel Jones's top wide receiver target this year.
Yeah, I'm glad you said wide receiver target, because I think Tyler Warren is going to be their lead guy. Just confusing a little Pennsylvania stuff. But when you look at Tyler Warren, I think they're going to move around, make him the key target. Is Anthony Richardson going to play within himself and not force the deep balls up to Josh Downs or Alec Pierce? Are we going to see that a little bit more? So it's really, if it's Richardson, Michael Pittman's value is very questionable, because Pittman also will have to deal with the similar inside routes of Tyler Warren, right? So Pittman, I think, is best served as a big slot, and then Pierce on the outside stretching the field, and Downs the guy that you work the ball into. But I think it's, in general, the Colts receivers are all knocked down, with Warren really shooting up there. He's now gone from borderline tight end 1 to the top 13, 14, and 11, 12 in some places as well. So everyone expects him to have a big pass catching role. I expect this to also be a run heavier team. So I just want to stay away from all Colts receivers. It's just a thing for me. I just don't want to trust them. And then the injury could linger. And then, look, it's not like the quarterback situation is much better. Like his production was when they cleaned it up away with Richardson. So with Richardson, I just can't recommend Pittman that high.
Yeah, and listen, I don't think if you miss on Pittman, you're going to be that upset, right? If you don't take him in the draft. I don't think it's going to be like, oh man, I really missed out on my opportunity. I think he can come through at wide receiver 33 to 36 at the end of the year, but it's not going to be like, I don't think he has that top 20 potential like he did a couple years ago with those quarterbacks. We are going to get through the rest of our top 45 wide receiver rankings, and I need to know why you're hating on my boy Emeka Egbuka. We'll discuss right after a quick break.
Time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink, minus the alcohol, into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're sinking birdies or just making memories with friends, this one's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Now, 5-Hour Energy is changing the game with the energy that you'll get when you're out on the links. And again, we're making wild shots and all the things that we want to focus in on the course and with our buddies and playing. And 5-Hour Energy helps you power through all that and really have more memories to build. Golf is all about good times with good people and good flavors. Of course, the grape ginger lime flavor gives you the best part of your clubhouse go-to without chasing down the bev cart. If you go to 5hourenergy.com today, that's the number 5hourenergy.com, you can use my promo code LOCKEDONGolf to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid till September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. Whether you're meeting up with friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36, get the energizing boost you need to power through. Order transfusion flavored 5-Hour Energy shots today. All right, Michelle, it is time to close our look at our wide receiver rankings. That means we know next week we'll be looking at some tight end rankings for you as well. So we'll go through that. We got through every position. So if you missed anything on quarterbacks, running backs, rest of the wide receivers, it's all up there. Coming up, quarterbacks will be next week as well. So if you miss anything with that, we've got you covered with these positions. Now, Michelle, Emeka Egbuka, he's a buzzy rookie first rounder out of Ohio State, the latest Ohio State first round receiver. He is running in a significant role with Mike Evans, with Chris Godwin ailing. He's moved ahead of Jaylen McMillan. So you really like him. You have him way up there ahead of some guys that I have, familiar veterans. So explain why you have Ibuka at wide receiver 40. I have him a few spots lower, but you're definitely high on him. I have him at 46.
Yeah, so it's not like the overall rankings are that crazy difference for us. I think it's just the guys that you have ahead of Ibuka. And I do plan to move up Ibuka even more if Chris Godwin officially is going to miss the start of the season. I think he's just a really polished overall. Like he could play anywhere on the field. He's polished with those 4 years at Ohio State. He's ready to go. Baker Mayfield's already talking him up. And I just think if Chris Godwin's out, he's going to have immediate opportunity to have such a large role in this offense. And yeah, Mike Evans will get his, he's going to get his 1,000 yards. He's going to get his 10 touchdowns, right? But yeah. I do think this offense prefers to have a different go-to wide receiver, more of that possession wide receiver. I think Ibuka fits that role really, really well. We saw Jaylen McMillan when he needed to step in this offense last year perform amazingly. I mean, he averaged 17.5 points per game in those final 5 games of the season. So I think Ibuka has really, really high upside this year. And that's why I have him ranked over guys like Deebo Samuel and Juwan Jennings and Chris Olave and Jordan Addison. And while you have all of them ranked ahead of Ibuka, I just think they have Ibuka has such a higher ceiling than drafting any of those other guys that you kind of know what they are.
Yeah, with Addison, we just also found out that he's going to miss 3 games with suspension. So that's why we're also very careful with Addison's ranking. And then so that gives Ibuka appeal. Now, again, the Godwin situation, we had a little bit more clarity. I would bump him up. I'd probably bump him into wide receiver 3 territory. But that's why we have to be careful with where we're ranking Godwin. As well, those injury issues are just hard to trust. And depth chart issues where things are so contingent on that. Now, if you can get up there to the second target, of course, Ibuka becomes a very draftable wide receiver 3. He's out on the outskirts here until we have a little bit of understanding of Godwin's timeline, McMillan's role, what they're going to do in this new offense, keeping a lot of the concepts they had with Liam Cohen. So there's a lot of things that we have to consider, but Ibuka definitely has the talent to produce here. And you're right, Jawan Jennings is such a hard dude. I think he's just out there and he's like, okay, he's a super sub, but how much is he going to see in that role? And the calf injury and some of the contract stuff. So again, I think that's fair to keep your Ibuka over Jennings at this rate.
Now, one guy we're pretty similar on, or actually exactly the same on, is Jakobi Meyers. He's sitting as our wide receiver 37. And it's just hard to get him higher than that because of all the names ahead of him. You just like a little bit more excited. But I do think he's a great value in drafts this year. He's going as a wide receiver 41, an average draft position. He was a wide receiver 23, an average scoring last year. And that started with he did that even though he started the year very slowly in the first 2 weeks of the season. But weeks 3 through 18, Myers was averaging 12.5 points per game, wide receiver 20, and average scoring during that span. I mean, that was the same as Devonta Smith and Garrett Wilson and JSN and Jerry Jeudy, actually even more than those guys during that span. He averaged 8.6 targets per game last year. That ranked 11th among wide receivers. So I just think with the upgrade at Geno Smith, they added other wide receivers, so I still think Myers will be the top targeted wide receiver on this team. I think he's a safe pick, and I think he's a good value at wide receiver 40 that he's going.
Yeah, everything points to him being the second target behind Brock Bowers without question, because you also have some question on the depth chart, right? I mean, Jack Beck was the buzzed about second-round rookie, but Dante Thornton, the fourth-round rookie, has outplayed him so far. Then you have Trey Tucker rounding out the depth chart. So there's definitely an opportunity for the top wide receiver on the team, who is Myers right now, to produce very well. And again, Chip Kelly is going to see this and use him. And Myers, remember, came on strong as kind of a big slot with the Patriots. So they made such a big deal about him never scoring. Well, he's carved out a good niche here. The funny thing is he's actually starting to do better without Josh McDaniels, who brought him there with the Patriots connection. The funny thing is also Raiders and Patriots will play each other in week 1. So that'll be kind of interesting dynamic that we look at. But again, with Jakobi Meyers, again, he's just solid. He's going to get some targets. He's going to get involved. The Raiders are going to probably throw quite a bit, some defensive question marks there. Geno Smith also helps, obviously, to have a little bit more consistent quarterback versus what we had last year with Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew in that mess.
Now, you brought up Jordan Addison, the news that came down that he'll be suspended for the 3 games to start the season. How much does that move him down? He was a wide receiver 20 overall last year, and he missed 2 games, but caught 9 touchdowns. Wide receiver 28 on average in his 2023 rookie season. I don't know what to do with him, right? Because so much of his production comes from touchdowns. And if those go down with JJ McCarthy there and TJ Hawkinson back, if we're expecting fully healthy, and he misses 3 games, that's a lot of concerns. Right now, you have him at wide receiver 34. I did move him down to wide receiver 44 after this news. Are you moving down Addison after the news or keeping him steady?
I'll keep him around here, maybe a few spots lower, but this is also good news for Jefferson. Not like he needed more good news at quarterback or with his wide receiver situation. But TJ Hawkinson should also get bumped up because it's going to give both those guys more opportunities to maybe score and become bigger factors early in the season. And 3 games is 3 games. You can get out of the gate quickly with those guys. But I'll probably keep Addison around the same. I think he can make up for it. Really, he's not in danger. I mean, we're not seeing Jalen Naylor or anyone else taking his job, not in danger of losing really the second wideout spot here for the Vikings. So he should be okay. I just think it's going to put him a little bit behind with J.J. McCarthy, right? And keep in mind, this guy has not started regular season games at quarterback. So that could just push him down a little bit, right? If he's like, okay, Jefferson and Hawkinson are my more reliable receivers on the field right now. Just develop a little chemistry, put Addison behind that a little bit when playing. So, again, some things to factor, but the best case scenario is hoping for a wide receiver 3 production this season.
Yeah, unfortunately, it just is going to be really hard to draft him, hold on to him for those 3 weeks, and trust him week in and week out with a new quarterback and with TJ Hawkinson there. So lots of question marks around him, but that will be it for our wide receiver rankings. We'll have a show where we get into our deep sleepers at each position, so that won't be it for our wide receiver ranks, but that's it for our top 45. I want to thank you all for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On Bets. Betting experts Lee Sterling and Kevin Rogers have daily MLB locks and can't miss football futures. Find Locked On Bets on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll talk to you on Monday. Bye, y'all.